on this episode of the Sorority Chat Podcast.
Etiquette is not something that should feel fancy or rigid or unapproachable, and that it's actually something that can help them set themselves apart in a world where we have access to so many resources and is so digital. So if you can really focus on those, as I said before, soft skills, connection, presenting yourself, there's so much power in that.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Alexander, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey sorority chatters, welcome back. Today's guest is Mariah Humbert, an etiquette trainer, author, and founder of Old Soul Etiquette. Mariah grew up in New Jersey, studied fashion merchandising and apparel studies at the University of Delaware, and began her career in the corporate fashion industry before leaving that world in 2021 to build her own business, where she focuses on modern etiquette, human connection, conversation, and self-presentation. She's now the author of 2 books, What Do I Do? Every Wedding Etiquette Question Answered, and The Essential Wedding Planner. And I'm excited to talk with her today about confidence, communication, building a business from scratch, and what etiquette actually looks like for women today. Hi, Mariah.
Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for having me.
It is such a treat to get to talk with you. I'm like an etiquette nerd, by no means a professional, but I appreciate it in a lot of ways. And so I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yay, I love to hear that. Me too.
Yes. So we have something in common. I studied merchandising, apparel, and textiles at the University of Kentucky. So we had similar study backgrounds.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I think people didn't understand how robust of a major that it was in college. I mean, between the chemistry and the business classes, I don't think I expected it either.
It is an interesting intersection of things. And, I took it and honed in on the textile piece and then took it in interior design. And then you went into corporate fashion. And so what drew you into that world from the beginning?
I've always had a love for fashion. For me, it was really about the styling and the power that our clothes have to lift our moods and help us express ourselves. Somehow I ended up in a very businessy role with a lot of spreadsheets and not a lot of styling. But I learned so much from studying it in college. My favorite classes were actually all about costume history. I'm just super fascinated about how our clothes play such a big part of who we are and how we express ourselves.
Yes, I agree. That is fascinating. And to see how culturally clothing changed over time and what it expresses, there is so much to learn there. And I don't know, I kind of geek out about it.
Yes, me too.
What was the turning point for you when you realized, okay, this isn't where I want to be and I want to maybe go a different direction?
When I first started working in the fashion industry, I had moved to New York. It wasn't a huge jump, just over the Hudson River. Like you said, I grew up in New Jersey, and I was 22, fresh out of college, and I took an etiquette course in the city, which, as most 22-year-olds would. I was looking to connect with like-minded people, and I really found a passion in working with people in that sense. And it wasn't for months until I decided to start my own business. But when the pandemic hit, I moved back in with my parents. I couldn't live and work in 450 square feet in New York. I lived in a studio by myself. And so it was really when you took the glamour out of the job that I was doing for me to really see that I wasn't enjoying the actual job. When I was working in the city, there were dinners and showrooms and vendor meetings, and it was what you think it would be. And when you strip that all away because of the global pandemic, I realized I was made for more than spreadsheets.
Yeah, I get that. When you're in a creatively fueled field, spreadsheets aren't going to do it for you. And so what made you take the etiquette class?
I was looking for things to do on the weekends to meet people that might share interests with me. I was not raised with any kind of formal etiquette. It was a self-interest. I love history, so I've collected historical etiquette books for a while. And so it was a way for me to fill my time socially, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Are they hammering right now? Is that what I hear? Okay, it's all right. We'll keep going. It's fine.
Really bad.
It is like a low thumping that I hear. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Okay, so I think when people hear the word etiquette, like it can kind of make them feel rigid and be off-putting because sometimes it brings to your mind's eye a very formal or old-fashioned way of behaving. Your brand is not that way though. So why don't you talk about how you're making etiquette more modern and approachable and personal to folks today?
I really think it needed a rebrand because it's a fancy word for social awareness and emotional intelligence. And so instead of looking at it as this rule book as it's been presented to us historically, you get a book with all these rules of what you're supposed to do and even more so what you're not supposed to do. But instead of that, if we looked at it as a way of a set of tools actually to help empower us in our social confidence, stand out with authenticity, connect with others, and use it as a way to tap into our social awareness and emotional intelligence, it can actually be a really, really, really important skill set for us to help us reach our full potential. So I sort of say tools, not rules, because who wants to follow strict rules anyway?
So I agree with you on it being more about social intelligence and less about rules. And I'm so glad that you are coming at it from that angle because there's stuff that I tend to deem it as maybe common sense or just, saying please and thank you was ingrained in me as a child or sending a thank you note after receiving a gift or if I'm thinking of someone and you realize that may not be taught with everyone and having those skills really do set you apart personally, but also professionally.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear all the time, it's a dying art. It's a dying art. And I think being in this super digital age, it's easy for us to forget about maybe those slower or more traditional things. And so in a lot of my work, I'm trying to keep tradition alive, but in a way that makes sense for 2026 and beyond.
Okay, so you're right. The digital age is somewhat killing some of that like interpersonal conversation, especially since the pandemic, like you talked about. We were all separated. We didn't have that in-person time. And so it's been a slow roll getting back to that. And so I think we feel very disconnected as humans. And so do you think conversation skills are becoming a lost art, or is it just that we're changing them and reframing them?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that we are forgetting the power of the micro moments instead of those kind of deeper conversation skills, like what we can do where we take out our headphones and look at the person in the eye who's checking us out at the store or making our coffee in the morning. And I think that those micro moments have kind of been put to the wayside because we're constantly on our phones. We're moving at a mile a minute. So I think that aspect of it, but also the connection on a slower, more interpersonal in that way has also kind of been lost because we're so used to communicating digitally, and especially the generations coming up, we're quick to say they don't have these social skills, but they're being brought up in a world that's very different than older generations. So a lot of my work is trying to get these generations to meet in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's not maybe that they don't have them. It's just that they haven't been taught and they don't know what they don't know. I see that a lot with interns that come in or folks that I'm mentoring, and it's just simply bringing it to their attention because we have to assume positive intent. They're not looking you in the eye to be mean. They don't know that that's something that is good and should be required in a conversation.
Exactly. And I see that a lot because especially, I do a lot of corporate work and a lot of employers are quick to put all the blame on Gen Z. And of course, I think every generation has their strengths and their weaknesses where it makes sense. But I think it goes back to exactly what you said, Liz, that we only know what we know. And so I think taking a moment to assume the best of people and be kind and lead by example can really make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know I want that with someone. If I, make the mistake and have my face in my phone, I don't want that to reflect poorly on me forever. I'd like to have a chance to reverse that assumption.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are some simple things that young women can do right now to improve the way that they're presenting themselves, whether that be professionally, because we have a lot of college students, a lot of graduates that are listening, or socially, if they're about to go through recruitment, whether that's as a potential new member or on the active side? What can they do that doesn't feel fake or over the top, but that is authentic for them?
So a lot of my work is rooted and backed in psychology. I'm fascinated by the way our brains work and perceive each other and human connection. And so interestingly enough, over half of the way that we are perceived by people is through our nonverbal behavior. And so especially the younger generations, myself included, we are quick to think, I overshared, I said something weird, and they're kind of having that social anxiety. We've all been there. So I think if you can think about, okay, this person is really going to remember and catch on to my energy and the way I enter a room and the way I carry myself, you can actually put more eggs in that basket. So what I mean by that is making sure that you are, thinking about how you enter a room with your posture, with your eye contact, paying attention to keeping your body language open, dressing, the way that you want to be addressed. All of those things, when we think about the work we can do before we even walk into the door and how we carry ourselves, is really the energy that we're going to leave with the people we're around. So when I think about, I went through recruitment myself, it was like 100 years ago, but it's easy for us to really obsess over, did we say the right things? But what you're leaving with people is your energy, being a good listener, letting people feel valued in your presence. All of those things that you can do with your nonverbal behavior really, really make a big difference.
Yeah, listening is something that comes up a lot because we're in a world where you're constantly talking and putting output. You're putting things on social, you're talking to friends, you're texting. And so for somebody to stop and actually listen back to you, that is a standout moment. And it comes up a lot with guests on this podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the easiest ways to have someone feel valued in your presence is to listen to them. And when someone feels valued in your presence, that's who they want to spend more time with, right? I would say people do business with people they believe, like, and trust. You're always trying to build that credibility. But you can also look at that from the recruitment standpoint too, that every interaction that you're having, your goal is to build trust. And so by listening to someone and having them feel valued when you're speaking is a very easy way to do that.
Yes, I agree. And then, it's that old adage of people don't remember what you said or what you did. They remember how you made them feel. And by listening to them.
I use that quote all the time. I open a lot of my workshops with that quote because I feel that so strongly.
Yeah. Especially as disconnected as we feel in this day and age, like for someone to make you feel good, that goes a long way and really create some social capital in that relationship.
Yes. And I think it alleviates some of that social anxiety too, that it's not about being perfect. It's about being present and meeting people where they are.
Absolutely. I mean, I just say all the time, perfection does not exist in anything. We as humans are not perfect. There is no perfect design, none of it exists. And so you can strive to be your best, but perfect is not attainable.
Fully agree.
So I'm curious, you said you went through recruitment. What is your Greek affiliation?
I was in Alpha Xi Delta. I don't know what am I supposed to say my initiation year, my graduation year? I don't even know if I can do the math. I graduated from the University of Delaware in 2019, and I was in Alpha Xi Delta there.
Nice. We've done some work on some different AZD properties. It's always fun just to hear people's connections.
Yes, recruitment was a huge part of my college experience, or sorority life was a huge part of my college experience. Aside from the connection and the friendships, also the leadership opportunities. I actually did a interview with AZD's marketing team for an article, and I said I feel like when I served on our recruitment team, that's where I first found my big voice. I said, wow, I have a really loud voice when you can speak to 200, 300 women and get everyone's attention. I'm like, holy cow, my voice is a lot louder and bolder than I ever thought that it was. So I say sorority, life and being on the recruitment team, it helped me find my big voice.
I love that. Yes, your stage voice. Well, I was going to say, your Instagram presence is it's so elegant and intentional, and it doesn't feel like you're shouting at us or, pushing. You're welcome. And it's not intimidating either. And so what was it like building that personal brand online? Like, does it just come naturally to you, or was it something that you kind of had to hone and work at?
I think a little bit of both. I think I'm naturally comfortable in front of people. I will look at some of my old videos on social media and laugh at how terrible they are, how high-pitched my voice is, but we all have to start somewhere, right? And so I think, personal brand is something I could talk about for hours and hours and hours, but I think it is something that you build upon and continue to build upon. But really, your personal brand is showing up as yourself. And so I tell people it's less about adding things and trying to be something and actually tearing away layers so that you can really show up as yourself. And that's how I look at personal branding. So it's been a huge learning curve being present online and speaking and, having a presence on social media. But I think so much of it has been a journey to just continue to get back to who I am in a world that, especially social media can feel a little performative.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I know that folks seem to be looking for more of that authenticity on social these days. Like everything doesn't have to be perfect and polished. It is just showing up and talking to your friends.
Right. Connection.
Yeah. Connection's a big one. So you've written 2 books, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Was being an author always a goal for you?
Yes, but I thought maybe 10, 15 years down the road, late in my career, maybe when I wanted to slow down and choose something else. I never imagined that it would come as quickly as it did, but I love it. I love to write. I love being a published author is a dream come true, but I really do love the process of it.
How did it come about then, if it was quicker than you thought?
So I always say I stepped in, because I had a publisher approach me, which doesn't usually happen in the publishing industry. Normally the normal, air quoting in case you can't see it, the normal kind of system is that you hope that a literary agent will take you on. You're writing, proposals, drafts, outlines, and then they help you pitch it to various publishers. And it can be a really, really long process. And I had a publisher take a chance on me and say, we'd love for you to write a modern etiquette book. We're not exactly sure the topic, but pitch us some ideas and let's see if we can make this happen. And that was really, really early into me launching my business. So it was kind of a learn as you go, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks kind of strategy.
Sometimes those are the best, though. You don't get in your own way and get stuck in your head.
Yes, totally.
So what is one wedding etiquette, I should say, debate that you think people get too focused on or worked up about?
The biggest thing I hear is the relationships between the people who are closest to you and this whole balance of power over decisions, and especially when money is involved. So, one member of the couple's parents might be contributing something financially. Maybe the other member of the couple's family is also, or maybe it's a traditional sense where the bride's family is paying, but how much power do you give them over the guest list, over, comments that they have on the dress that you've picked out? And so a lot of the book is about how to communicate with people when everybody is under a lot of emotional stress. So the book is about how do we honor tradition, but make it work in a way that, weddings now, it's anything goes, right? But it's about not compromising the dream wedding that we want, but still being respectful and learning how to communicate with the people closest to us, because emotions are high.
Yes. That psychology is coming in there, that communication and how to balance everything.
Yes. I mean, my husband says this all the time. We're all in, and you can just think about this work or life. We're all in the business of people, right? Work socially. So much of our world is interacting. So learning how to do that in the best way possible, whether we're talking about weddings, whether we're talking about walking down the street in the morning or whatever it is, it's a true skill.
Isn't that so true, though? Just boiling it down to communication and like connecting with the other person. What that gets you in all scenarios of life.
And you couldn't imagine what gets solved when you put some intention and strategy behind the conversations you have, and you carve out special time for these important conversations, and you're not just shouting it across the dinner table when everyone gets together. When you have a little bit of a game plan and preparation put in place, you'd be really surprised at how effective good communication can really be.
I agree, but not prepping in like a manipulative way, right?
No.
Talk more about that, like how to maybe authentically prepare and show up. Explain that a little.
I think, we're talking about an issue that involves multiple people. So if we go back to the wedding, it's making sure that you and your partner are on the same page. Like you have a conversation first together before you go to your parents or their parents, making sure that you're thinking about your expectations and what you might be willing to compromise, thinking about going into the conversation with good posture and body language and tone, and also being really, really intentional about when and where you're having these conversations. Again, not dropping it at the Thanksgiving dinner table, but pulling someone aside on a special, day and saying, can we meet on Thursday? Can we have a phone call on Thursday to talk about this? putting that kind of preparation in. It's not about being scripted or, as you said, manipulative. It's about, putting your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just a little bit of forethought goes a long way. Then it's not reactive. It's thoughtful and intentional in your approach.
Exactly.
How do you personally balance the modern versus traditional expectations?
I think it's about understanding the why behind the tradition and then thinking about how we apply that today, right? So, we can think about thank you notes, right? A written thank you note is still something that I preach. It's not one of those things that I think have evolved. I think handwritten thank you notes are still equally important as they were back in the day, if not more important now, for work or for social life. But I'm also alive and, functioning in this era where sometimes you want people to know immediately what you think, right? Especially after a job interview. If you're waiting for that thank you note to get delivered by snail mail, you may have missed your chance to send that thank you email. So that's why I recommend doing both. Send the email right away, but then also send the thank you note. So it's about thinking about why we write the handwritten note, why we keep that tradition, but then also saying, okay, we want that person to know that we're thinking of them, that we appreciate their time. So how can I make that work for our era now?
Yeah, that's a good point to do both. I hadn't really thought about that. Like the mail is unreliable, and then that could miss the window of when they're making that decision. So if they get that email from you, then it keeps you top of mind.
Right. Things happen so fast now. So it's like, how do you balance still being front of mind with going the extra mile and writing the handwritten note, which most people are not doing?
Yes, I love it. I'm also a handwritten note person. I love stationery. I will send a note. I taught a soft skills class at UK a few years back, and we had guest speakers. And part of the course requirements where students needed to write a thank you note to the speaker, and then I mailed them out. And so it was just very interesting. Some folks were familiar with doing it. Others were like, why are we doing this? And so it was just a teaching moment, but I am 100% with you on thank you notes.
I have a giant bag. It's not pretty. It's literally a giant Ziploc bag in my office full of thank you notes that I've received from clients and students. And I keep every single one because I think there are a few things more special than the fact that someone took the time to put pen to paper and thought of you and put it in the mail. It's more so the effort behind it. And I think that's the perfect way to explain how you were saying the tradition between the modern. It's like, what is the effort and the thought behind it more so than the actual action or item?
Yeah, exactly. Even the words written, it's just, they took time to pull out the paper, write it, put it in the envelope, stamp, mail it to me. And they, it was worth that much to them to make that effort. I love that you have that in a bag. I have a board, like one of those ribbon boards, and I do the same thing with like emails or note cards I get. And it's kind of my, like, if I'm having a rough day, go over and look at it and be reminded and encouraged, like, okay, you are doing good things, and like, put some pep in your step.
That's such a good idea. I do the same thing. If I'm having a rather low day, I will do the same thing. I'll take it out. I should probably copy you and have them out somewhere where I can see them, but I have dipped into that bag several times.
Yeah. Well, and after a while it gets a little loaded down, but it's just a fun reminder and just a nice thing that keeps it top of mind for me.
Yes.
So a lot of what we talk about on Sorority Chat is really about helping women navigate adulthood, their relationships and leaderships. And so what do you think makes someone memorable in a positive way today?
How they make someone else feel. Simple as that. How you can make someone feel in a conversation. How your smile, eye contact, simple how are you in those micro moments. That's what makes you memorable.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Keep showing up in the conversation today, huh? So you've talked a lot about having good posture, walking into the room and like having an air of confidence, or at least, feeling comfortable. If somebody is not comfortable and is not sure how to kind of infuse it or fake it till they make it, what advice would you give to them?
Well, I would say first and foremost, understanding how much power our body language has, focus on that, because that is going to signal to your audience, and by audience, it could be one person, that you are confident even if you are not feeling it. So that's first things first. But I think another part of that comes from learning how to speak about yourself, especially when it comes to being an adult, right? New relationships, interviews, sorority recruitment, dates, anything like that. We are forced to talk about ourselves a lot, and it's a really difficult skill. And so if you could put some preparation into that as well, simple as jotting down a couple of things that come to mind about, what you're working on, your current role, whatever that might be. Putting preparation into that will make you feel more at ease when those personal questions come up.
Yes, that's very good. Talking about ourselves can be so uncomfortable because you're riding a line of you don't want to sound like you're bragging, or tooting your own horn, or you have this huge ego, but you also don't want to downplay things. So it's finding that line of communicating what's important without sounding inflated.
Exactly. And it is a fine line. And I think a lot of that humility comes from storytelling, right? I think when people say, "Oh, tell me about yourself," we're very quick to list things. And that's where it can come off a little robotic or perhaps maybe sound a little braggy, even if that's not your intention. So when we can tell a story, and so when I tell people there's 3 ways you can answer when someone says, "Tell me about yourself." 1 sentence, "Where have you been?" 1 sentence, "Where are you now?" And 1 sentence, "Where do you want to go? Where are you going?" And if you can deliver that in a confident way that sounds more like a story and you're not rattling off listing things, that's where you can really find the balance between advocating for yourself, because we're our only form of marketing, with being humble.
Okay, I like that. So give me an example. If I said, "Mariah, tell me about yourself," how would you break that down?
So I would say in 2021, I left the corporate fashion world to start my own business. Now I'm a New York City-based etiquette trainer. I travel all around the country to help different organizations and individuals with their social confidence. I currently have 2 books and I am working on the 3rd one. And, really my goal is to impact as many people as I can with their confidence through modern etiquette.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing it. I think it's always helpful for people to hear real life examples.
Absolutely.
Last question. What is the number one thing that you hope listeners walk away with from today's episode?
I really hope that they understand that etiquette is not something that should feel fancy or rigid or unapproachable, and that it's actually something that can help them set themselves apart in a world where we have access to so many resources and is so digital. It's hard to set yourself apart now. And so if you can really focus on those, as you said before, soft skills, connection, presenting yourself, there's so much power in that.
Yes. And if people want to follow along with what you're teaching and putting on social, how can they do that?
I'm Mariah.Humbert on Instagram and TikTok, Mariah Humbert on Facebook, Mariah Humbert on LinkedIn, and my website is www.mariahhumbert.com. So as long as you have my name, you'll find me somewhere.
And we will make sure all of that is in the show notes written out for you. Mariah, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was a treat to talk today.
Thank you, Liz. Likewise.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's house hot take. The facilities chair needs a binder too. Keep finish specs, paint colors, furniture layouts, and vendor contacts all in one place for her. Exec boards change year after year, but institutional memory should not. I know sorority women love a binder, so make one for your housing details. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat Podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat Podcast. Catch you next time. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Alexander.